And a very good Friday morning to you. It's WKRK in Murphy, North Carolina, 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25. We're also heard on Amazon Echo and Google Home. And hello out there to our friends on Facebook. It is a Friday morning, the 18th of May. And on Friday morning at this time, we always welcome back Sheriff Derek Palmer, and let's cut the camera over to him, and we'll just start the interview process here. Good morning. How
Good morning.
Are you? I guess it's not really an interview, it's more of a conversation.
Yeah, we usually have a conversation on Friday mornings. We don't really know what we're going to talk about till we get started, but
He's making fun of my long tie earlier.
I've tried to teach him how to tie a tie, and I think we're about to get there.
It's a little too long today, and I was too lazy to retie the thing, so I thought nobody's going to see this on camera.
He is behind the desk. So
I am behind a desk, so when I put the camera on me, you just can't see how long. I haven't tripped over it yet, so that's a good thing.
That's always a good thing. Yeah.
All right, what's going on in the world of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office?
Well, again, it's been another busy week, and like I say, those weeks don't seem to calm down much anymore. They just keep going. But last week when I was here, I talked about some reevaluations of the sheriff's office and some things that we're looking at. And for those that may not have heard last week's broadcast, we come out of a primary election, and we don't have an election in November, so mine's done. I'm done for 4.5 years for I have to go through an election again.
Which saddens me. Lord. I keep on teasing him because I told him I'm going to miss his money in the fall.
Yeah, well, he got an advertisement that Facebook telling him he charged too much, so he didn't change that. So, but we are, we come out of an election and we won handedly in the election. However, we still feel like it's an obligation to our community and to our citizens to look at things ever so often and see where we're at and what we need to change and do differently and make appropriate changes there. So that's what we've kind of been doing this week. We have been evaluating our sheriff's office. We've been evaluating everything from our narcotics division to detention center to administration, patrol, all those kind of things. And so we've started the process of taking each one of these departments within the office and making changes and doing things within the office itself. And so what we've done up to this point, and we'll be making some additional changes next week and going through some different processes next week. But one thing that I think is pertinent that we need to start off with is our detention center. Anybody that gets to Cherokee Scout or saw press releases this week understands that we had to make a hard decision last week, and we had to fire a couple people in the detention center because of an incident that occurred there involving an inmate. And I do want to let everyone know is that I'm not at liberty to discuss that in detail as to what happened or what didn't happen or those type of things. There is an ongoing criminal investigation involved in that we requested the State Bureau of Investigations to come in and evaluate that and look at it and evaluate our center, quite frankly, to see what's going on down there. We have nothing to hide as a sheriff, and that I want to evaluate this and make sure that we do things appropriately.
People appreciate the transparency. You're not sweeping it under the rug, but we understand there's legal issues.
There is legal issues involved with that. So because there are personnel issues involved, because there are criminal investigative issues involved, we can't discuss the details of those things that may or may not have happened there. However, one thing that we do want to acknowledge is that through this process of looking at the entire sheriff's office and revamping things, the detention center is one of those things that we're looking at, making changes at the way we operate and the way we do, and doing some differences there. In the last couple of years, there has been a lot of complaints about the detention center. However, probably about 98% of those complaints have been things of just what people don't like, whether it's the operating hours or whether it's visitation or the way we do things. And a lot of those operational things is, that people just don't agree with or don't like kind of thing. And those are things that has to be decisions made by the sheriff as to what's appropriate.
I'm guessing that just something like a detention center, regardless of what town or state it's in, they probably don't get a lot of praise.
They don't. And I met with my staff last week in the detention center and talked to them about this, and it's just the truth. When I go to sheriff's conferences and meetings across the state, and it really doesn't matter what state, but primarily in North Carolina that I go to, I talked to sheriffs across the state, and something very similar to this is said quite often. As sheriffs say these statements, if my job would be wonderful, it wasn't for my detention center. That if I wasn't for my detention center, my job would be easy. Those kind of things. And I told my staff that, and I said it's not for the purpose of saying detention center is bad or you're bad people or those type of things. The reason sheriffs make those statements is because detention centers is where your most liability occurs. It's where you can make mistakes that can send you to prison the quickest because you're dealing with people that's already incarcerated. And there's just a lot of likes and dislikes and things for the community when it comes to detention center. One thing I always try to remind people is that the detention center is not made to be fun. It's not made to be a hotel. It's not made for those kind of things. It's jail. And so we have to understand that we're not there to give people a good time and for them to have a good time while they're there. They're incarcerated.
I can't help but think when I go to a nice hotel to stay and come back and get to review the stay.
Right.
Even though it's a nice, perfect hotel, I never see all 5 stars on there. So
no, never.
I can't help but equate that to the detention center. How was your stay here at the jail?
That's it. So, we have to take all those things into consideration. As sheriff, my primary responsibility there for the detention center is the safety and security of that center, is to make sure that people are safe. And so when you have incidents and things that occur, my number one priority is to make sure that things are safe there, not just for the officers, not just for my employees and people that work there, but also for the inmates that are there. There's a responsibility there of making sure that they are safe, that they are taken care of. And so we don't want to be doing things or implementing policies and behaving in such a way that we're putting people at risk or we're not being what we need to be there to do the safety and security of the inmate. So those are all issues that we constantly have to deal with. Now, one of the things we're doing in the revamp of that detention center and looking at it and what's going on there is not so much the policies and not so much our operating hours and visitation hours and those kind of things, but we're looking at things about, like, for example, like our hiring process and what kind of extra training that we should be doing and how we should really bring these detention officers on and put them through a program that we can ensure the safety of our inmates, that they've been through a particular program or a certain thing as far as their training, that they understand liabilities and they understand all these things. Now, we go through the state process and all those things that we have to do to get people employed, but one of the things that we're implementing this week is we're implementing an additional training standard. We are going to do some things to where we're going to go above and beyond what the state says training we need to do. We're actually putting some field training programs together, so when we hire new employees, we can put them through some additional training to make sure that they understand the policies and procedures and liabilities and those type of things. But not only that, but we've implemented a new program, and we're getting ready to unveil that and roll that out to where that when new detention officers that come through not only get that new training and that new program, that we are taking our existing detention officers and putting them through remedial training. And we're going to back up, and even the people that we already have, we're going to put them through some training and recapping things they should already know and should already be doing. But we've got our instructors lined up to do some training for them to make sure that they're on board with everything and there's no lapse there in their knowledge and judgment of things. Right. And so we want to make sure that we're above board on the training standards for our detention officers. I could not be a detention officer, I'll just be honest with you. That's one of those things that you will have to understand, that that not only a detention officer themselves, that they may have a right to protect themselves. And one thing I talk to my staff is I don't expect anything to expect them to be beat up or for them to be assaulted or for them to be abused. But they need to understand their limits. And they need to understand that when they are dealing with an inmate, that there's a limit that you go to and you can't go beyond that limit. And we need to make sure those lines are drawn and those lines are clear as to what's expected of them and what they can do and what they can't do. And so those lines can get blurry sometimes. Right. Those emotions can get involved in those things, and emotions can play a part in that. But we need to understand that we can't react based on our emotions, that we have to react based on the law and policy and procedure and what's in place there. So those are one areas that we're looking at and trying to revamp all of that.
And sometimes it's tough when you're having to make split-second decisions too.
Right, it is. And so, a lot of times when officers are involved in these things, they don't understand, because their emotions do get involved. They don't understand that they've crossed that line, or they don't understand they went beyond that line. So in our transparency and what we've done with this also is we have also looked at having the SBI look into these things and look into some of these allegations, and to make sure there's no criminal activity going on there at the detention center. And if there is, people will get charged. Detention officers will get charged out of this, and not just this incident, but other incidents. So we have a responsibility of making sure that our inmates are protected. We have a responsibility to make sure their employees are protected, and that we understand the lines back and forth between those two. The other thing that I had told our staff this week when we had our meeting is you need to also understand that inmates will try to push your buttons.
Right.
They will try to do things to cause you to lose control. They will do things to try to cause you to lose your temper, to lose your emotions, and try to cause you to react in such a way that you put your job at risk, that you put your life at risk, that you put your freedom at risk. And these inmates don't care, to cause you to lose your family or to lose your job or to lose your freedom. And so we have to realize that when we go in, is that we understand that they're trying to push our buttons and not to fall for it, not to let them get to such a place where they push our buttons. And so there's a lot of those remedial trainings and things like that. I think it's important that we need to put our detention officers through and make sure they understand that they don't lose control when bad things happen. And there's times you have to fight. There's times that, if you get attacked or an inmate assaults you or attacks you, you have to defend yourself. And you have to make sure that you protect yourself, that you go home at the end of your shift, that you don't stand there and get hurt. But we need to make sure that we don't go overboard on that and make sure that we don't cross that line. And that's all liability issues that a lot of people don't think about. Changing gears just a little bit along from that, one of the other things that we have really taken a hard look at and make some changes. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with them today to make some changes that will be implemented next week is in our drug enforcement and our narcotics unit. Our unit has done a phenomenal job in the last 3 years. We have been able to do more trafficking arrests. We've been able to lock some main dealers out, federal conspiracies. We've been able to track drug dealing all the way down to basically gang and mafia level down into Atlanta and Gainesville and different places, and get our federal government involved on some cases that were working. You saw the doctors issue through Union General Hospital that we're able to accomplish and get a lot of our pills on the street stopped. So our unit has done a great job. They've done a phenomenal job. But again, that's one of the things we need to look at and say, how can we do it better? What are some things, where's our holes at? What are some things that we're missing on this? And so one of the things I've identified, both by talking to the public and talking to officers, talking to in-house, our own unit itself, other agencies, is doing an evaluation of what we're doing as far as drug enforcement. And I think one of the holes we have, and one of the things that we have been lacking on in the last couple of years, is the fact of those the street level crimes. We have done a phenomenal job on the dealers. We've done a phenomenal job on the ones that's supplying and all those type of things. But the problem is, and I think about every listener out there would agree with me on this, is one of the problems is that when you're working on a main level dealer, and it takes you, say, 8 or 10 months to get that dealer incarcerated, to get him in jail, to get charges that will stick, to get those things. The problem is the neighbor who still has someone across the street that's dealing, where traffic's in and out and needles being dropped and those kind of things. Those neighbors are appreciative that we spent 8 to 10 months on getting those main level dealers out, but they still have a problem.
Right.
They still have a neighbor across the street that is doing things out in the open, that's traffic coming back and forth. And we've tried to utilize our patrol units primarily for that. But our patrol units have been covered up also with calls. I think we did around 40,000 calls for service last year, and that's counting extra patrols and security checks. And so when you think about our patrol units doing almost 40,000 calls, they don't have a whole lot of time to sit on houses and to sit on the traffic coming in and out and all those type of things. And some of those houses may be occurring during the day, some in the middle of the night, some early morning. And so one of the things that we're changing and one of the things that we're looking at doing is revamping that narcotics unit and leaving some people assigned to the main level dealers and continuing to work that avenue, but also taking some of our officers and moving them more toward a street interdiction unit and moving them toward dealing with some of these issues and problems that people have in their neighborhoods with traffic in and out and dealings that's going on in driveways and needles being found in sides of the roads and parking lots and stuff of that nature. So we're having a meeting today and trying to unroll that and unveil that within our office, working with our criminal investigative division unit as far as how that's going to mesh with our investigators, and also with our first sergeant of patrol and seeing how that's going to mesh with our patrol units and going to lay that out to where we can see more visible street crimes units out there and dealing with things that's out in the open and blatant that people are seeing. One of the things we hear constantly, and there's very limited things we can do about it, but we hear constantly is about the people that's homeless, the people that are walking up and down the roads that are in the Andrews area. They refer to them as the backpackers. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in developing this unit is address those type of issues, those things that's kind of in your face that people are seeing every day. And so this next 4 years, we're going to kind of turn the corner a little bit and concentrate a lot on those type of things and try to make a difference in our community on those things that are visible, that are out in the open.
And that can be a challenge too, because it's not a crime to be homeless,
right,
unless you are committing crimes or trespassing or
right,
doing drugs, but like that. So that has to be. But I guess if you are homeless, your choices are a little limited in providing for yourself.
Well, one thing that we have found, and we've done the Day Youth Center, and we've been dealing with a lot of the homeless population and with the drug addicted population. And one of the things that we have found that I honestly did not comprehend, I didn't realize it, that there's a segment of population that just chooses to be homeless. That's the lifestyle they want to live.
Really?
They want to be homeless. I've talked with several people who, for example, a man and woman that I talked to here a while back, that they travel all over the country and they live out of a backpack, live out of a pup tent. And they just travel all over the country and they live under bridges and they live in forests and they live wherever they can lay down for the night.
Really?
And we've offered them help, offered them places to go, offered them, solutions to their problems, those kind of things. And they just tell you straight up, no, this is the lifestyle we've chose to live. This is what we want to do, So that was kind of a surprise to me.
That is to me.
Yeah.
Is there like a community here in our county where homeless people congregate and have a village?
Not necessarily a village. I know over in, I believe it's Waynesville, they had a situation there where kind of all the homeless kind of gathered together under a couple different bridges and kind of developed their own village, as you might say. But we're not necessarily seeing that in Cherokee County at this point. But what we are seeing is we're seeing, along with a homeless / drug addicted population, is that we are seeing that group of people kind of gathering together, and whoever has a house or whoever has a basement or that type of thing. When I was working drugs almost 20 years ago with the task force, when we did search warrants and went into houses, most of the time there would be no more than 2 or 3 people in a house. If you had 3 or 4 people in a house, that was, you needed extra help, and that was a big congregation of people. But today when we do search warrants on drug houses and we go into these places, it is nothing unusual to find anywhere from 8 to 20 people in a house. Just people laid out on couches and floors and wherever. So when we talk about homeless and the drug addicted part of that homelessness, we're not necessarily talking about living under a bridge. We're not necessarily talking about living in a tent in the woods. We're talking about people that has no place to call home. We're talking about people that's just kind of going wherever somebody will let them stay, kind of thing. And so, but it was really shocking and surprising to me is that there's some people that just choose this lifestyle. That's just the lifestyle they want to live, and that's just what they want to do. And when you have people that's what they're choosing for their life, then it's hard to get them to a place of recovery, get them to a place because that's where they want to be. And so that's not a huge segment of that population, but it is a segment of that population. So again, one of the things that we're trying to do with that is that we're trying to look at in our drug situation where we have looked at what's going on in our communities, trying to look at those gaps and look at those holes of what we've not been able to accomplish and do. And so we're trying to look at those things and see how to address those issues. And fortunately for those people that's living through that, we can have all the front page press releases and all the federal roundups and all the great things that we're doing blasted on the front page of the paper every week. But if they're looking at their bedroom window and watching drug deals go down every day at their neighbor's house, or traffic coming in and out every day at their neighbor's house, they still have an issue. They still have a problem. And so that's the thing that we want to kind of address in this next term, is looking at those issues and those problems.
And it's good too, because I can't imagine trying to do my job, run the radio station the same way I did it 22 years ago,
Right.
because things change so much. So we do have to take, in our business, time to just reevaluate how we do things, so we can provide a better product for our listeners and now viewers. So
It's easy to do the things you know,
Mhm.
right? If you've done it the last 20 years and you know how to do that and you're comfortable in it, it's easy just to keep riding that train and just keep doing those things that you know how to do. What's hard is trying to evaluate what's happening out there and how to come up with new ideas to address the situations and problems that we're facing. Going along, one thing I want to mention too, with the homeless and the backpackers and all those kind of things, you made the statement that it's not against the law to be homeless. It's not against the law to walk down the road with a backpack, and that's exactly true. And so what's frustrating for a lot of people is that they may have witnessed someone who was riding a bicycle down the street or is walking. They may have witnessed them maybe do a drug deal somewhere in town. And then later on, when law enforcement comes through, law enforcement didn't witness anything, they didn't see anything. But here's this person walking down the street, and a lot of times the citizens want the officer to grab that person up, search them, search their bags and do all these things. But if an officer doesn't have that probable cause, if he didn't witness it himself or have some information that gives him legal authority to do that, the only thing he can do is approach that person and ask for consent to search. But if that person says, no, you're not searching my stuff, then if that officer does not have probable cause to search, he can't forcibly start searching things. And so people don't understand that a lot of times about the way the law works and does. And honestly, I was one thing I talked about before. I had spent some time here a while back researching old newspaper articles and looking at things back in the 20s and the 30s, and and looking at the Cherokee Scout and other articles way back when. And I ran across this article. I thought, man, that would be so great if we could do that today. There was an article about where a sheriff back then, the report was somebody was in town and they were vagrant, and he banned them from town. He told them that they had to leave the county and they couldn't come back, and if they came back, he was going to arrest them for being in the county. And I was sitting there thinking, man, those tools that sheriffs used to have in the past would be great tools that we could use today. But we also need to understand that things have evolved, things have changed, rulings have been made in court systems and all those kind of things, to where the sheriffs and police officers don't quite have the power that we used to have years in the past. But when you get in our older populations remember how things were when they was a kid.
Right.
And what sheriffs used to do and what police officers used to do and those kind of things. And a lot of times they expect us to do the same things that they did way back when, and we just can't do those things anymore. And, we try to look out not only for legalities and not violate people's constitutional rights and the laws that have been handed down by the state, but we also try to avoid liabilities that occur out there too, because we don't want our taxes in the county to go up because we're doing dumb things out there and causing us to be sued and have to pay out lawsuits and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different things involved in that we have to take in consideration when dealing with the drug issues and the drug problems. But hopefully we're going to make some changes. We're going to do some things a little bit differently, and hopefully you'll see a difference in our community and see a more visible presence and more officers out there and doing things a little bit more than we've done in the past. And so we're just trying to make things better. And next week maybe we'll come up with some different things that we've talked about that we made changes in the sheriff's office. But for now, those are the two major things that we're looking at today.
All right. Let's see. On Wednesday, you were part of the National Law Enforcement Memorial Service,
Yes.
and we were there at the courthouse,
Right.
Broadcasting that. We were hoping to do it broadcast live, but we were having some internet issues, so we recorded it and uploaded it just as soon as it was over with.
Right.
Because we didn't want any flaky video
Right.
during memorial service. So
Yeah.
appreciate your participation in that. And is this whole week, is it Appreciation Week?
This whole week is National Law Enforcement Week, and So it's a week set aside by the president and by our government to honor law enforcement officers, and especially on the 16th was the Memorial Day. That was the day you remembered those that have given their life or have been killed in the line of duty type things that went on. One thing I do want to mention, and I meant to get up the Cherokee's count, I just neglected to do it. Had some other stuff going on. But we were able to work with Murphy Police Department and Dustin Smith, the assistant chief there, who's also with the Fraternal Order of Police. We were able to work with them and get Zach Ramsey's name put on the wall in Washington, the National Law Enforcement Wall. Zach Ramsey served as a temporary time as a sheriff here in Cherokee County. And after that, he was working as a deputy sheriff for a different sheriff that came in. And he was killed in the line of duty. I believe it was 1942 that he was killed in the line of duty while serving a warrant. And his name was one of the names that was neglected on putting on the wall in Washington, D.C. And so we filled out the appropriate paperwork and did a request and all those type of things and had his name added to the wall there in Washington. And so I know the family is very appreciative of that, and we helped them go through their things that they needed to do to be able to attend the unveiling and stuff in Washington. So it's just an honor to help those families that's left behind of those officers that were injured or killed in the line of duty.
It's an honor to see his name put on that wall.
Right.
And I know his family really appreciates that as well. We shared the video of that on our WKRK Facebook page.
Right.
If you want to watch either the local service or the one from Washington, D.C. The one from Washington, D.C. was edited down to about 20 minutes so that you could see the part that Zach Ramsey is mentioned in that.
And I don't know if, a lot of people may not have been up there and saw that, but I love Washington, D.C. It's one of my favorite towns of anywhere. And the reason I love it is because I do enjoy history. I like history type things. And when you go there to Washington, you see all the different memorials and all the different law enforcement memorial, Vietnam Wall, all the different things that are up there. The Korean Memorial, World War II Memorial, in addition to all the normal things that you think about in Washington with the monuments and the White House and all those kind of things. But if you've never had a chance to go up there and look at the law enforcement wall or the Vietnam Wall or the Korean Memorial or any of those things, if you're looking for a trip, it's worth it. Take a trip up there.
I've been through D.C., but I've never actually stopped and visited and vacationed there. So maybe I'll put that on my list.
And if you want to go to the Smithsonian, you need to take about a week.
A week?
Yeah, because it is huge, and you'll never see a fraction of it in a day. So it takes about a week to go through it.
I'm looking forward to that now.
Yeah. Y'all take your trip. You'll enjoy it.
I'll just let me sign off now. And I'll just do that right now.
There you go.
All right. Well, Sheriff, thank you very much. We appreciate your being with us every week here on WKRK. And you're going to be on Leo's show tomorrow at 11:11. Leo Phillips, you'll be here with Sheriff Holland from Macon County and Bobby Deese, who is running for sheriff in Clay County.
Right. He's the Republican nominee for Clay County, and Bobby was a detective of mine and worked here. And once he won the primary and became the Republican nominee in Clay County, the sheriff that's over there now, Vic Davis, is retiring, and he's not didn't run again. And his chief deputy had left to go work for the TVA, and so he asked Bobby to come on over to Clay County and be his chief deputy over there. And so Bobby went on to Clay County and is working over there as a chief deputy until the election there in November and seeing how that turns out. So Bobby's a good guy, and Sheriff Holland, of course, I've got along with him for many years, worked with him for many years. So they're both good men that do good jobs in their counties.
All right. Thank you very much, Sheriff. We appreciate it, and we'll be talking with you soon right here on WKRK in Murphy. And for folks who are going to tune in tomorrow, that's going to be on radio version only, the audio version, no Facebook version tomorrow. But we'll hear you on the radio or see you on the radio tomorrow. Have a great weekend, everyone. All right. It's WKRK Radio in Murphy, North Carolina.